You know, some people are famous for what they do, others for who they are. But it's pretty rare to find someone who absolutely nails both. I mean, think about it. How do you go from being called the missile man of a country to becoming its people's president? It's an incredible leap, and that's exactly the story we're diving into today. The amazing life of Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. So here he is, the man himself, Avul Pakir Jainulabdin Abdul Kalam. What a legacy, right? He was a scientist, an author, a statesman, truly an inspiration for millions. And his story, well, it really proves that greatness can spring up from literally anywhere. Which, of course, brings us to the big question. I mean, how does that even happen? His journey sounds like something straight out of a movie, but it's all true. It's a story all about struggle, about never giving up, and about an unbelievable hunger for knowledge. And it all started in this tiny, remote town on the Indian coast. Okay, so to really get the man, you have to get where he came from. And for Kalam, that place was the island of Ramaswaram. So picture this, a temple town, out on an island, kind of cut off from the mainland. It's a place where the rhythm of the ocean waves mixes with the chants of spiritual life. Ramaswaram was a huge pilgrimage spot. And it's into this really unique blend of nature and faith that he was born, back on October 15th, 1931. And this gives you a real feel for his background. I mean, his family wasn't wealthy by any stretch. His dad, Jainulabdin, owned a boat and was also the local imam, a really respected figure. His mom, Ashiyama, was a housewife. He was the youngest of 5 kids, and they all lived this simple life on a place called Mosque Street. Kalam himself said that even though they didn't have much money, his childhood was materially and emotionally secure. It was a life rich in love and values, and that's what really mattered. But that sense of security, well, it wasn't going to last. See, their entire livelihood was tied to the island, and that kind of dependence, it can make you really vulnerable. And then, just like that, everything changed. A new bridge opened up, connecting the island to the mainland. And for his father's business, ferrying pilgrims back and forth, it was a disaster. Their main source of income? Gone. Overnight, the family was thrown into some serious financial trouble. And this, right here, is where you get the first real glimpse of the man he would become. To help his family out, young Kalam started selling newspapers. We're talking about a kid waking up at the crack of dawn to get the papers and sell them before heading off to school. This was so much more than just a job. It was a daily grind that taught him discipline and resilience. And honestly, those are the exact same qualities he'd later use to lead these massive billion-dollar national projects. But even with all these struggles, his family just knew he was special. They saw his potential. When it was time for Kalam to leave home for school, his father said something pretty amazing to him. He said, "This island may be housing your body, but not your soul. Your soul dwells in the house of tomorrow." Just think about that. His dad understood that his son was meant for bigger things beyond their small town. What an incredible act of faith. So with his family's blessing, Kalam headed out on a path that wasn't just going to change his own life, it was going to change the future of science for his entire country. All right, let's track his incredible rise. So in the early 60s, after studying physics and aerospace engineering, he joins the DRDO. But things really kicked into high gear in 1969 when he moved over to ISRO, India's brand new space agency. And get this, they gave him a massive job. He was made the project director for India's very first satellite launch vehicle, the SLV-3. I mean, that same grit he had as a newspaper boy, he was now pouring all of it into rocket science. And finally, after years of hard work, a bunch of failures, and learning from every single one, the big breakthrough happened in 1980. And here's why that's so important. This wasn't just a win for Kalam. The successful launch of that Rohini satellite, it basically put India on the map. It made India one of just a handful of countries that could launch its own satellites. Think about that. The kid from that little island town had literally helped his entire nation reach for the stars. But believe it or not, space was just the beginning. For his next chapter, Kalam went back to defense research. And this is where he would earn that famous nickname, the one that would define him for a generation. He was tapped to lead this incredibly ambitious project, the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. We'll just call it the IGMDP. The goal sounds simple, but it was huge, to make India completely self-reliant in missile technology. And Kalam, he was the guy in charge, the chief executive of this whole critical mission. And under his leadership, the program created what they called a quiver of 5 different missile systems. You can see them here: Agni, Prithvi, Akash, Trishul, and Nag. Each one had a totally different purpose, and together, man, they completely transformed India's ability to defend itself. The success of this program was just so massive, and his leadership was so key to it all that this is it. This is how he became known as the Missile Man of India, and that name has stuck ever since. But Kalam's work was far from over. His contributions really cemented India's place on the world stage. And, as you can imagine, the nation he served was pretty eager to say thank you. Fast forward to 1998. He played a huge role in another defining moment for the country, the Pokhran-I nuclear tests. He was the chief scientific advisor to the prime minister at the time, and his leadership, both technically and organizationally, was absolutely critical in making India a nuclear power. And for all those decades of service, the country gave him its highest honors. Just look at the progression here. In 1981, he gets the Padma Bhushan, then in 1990, the Padma Vibhushan, and finally in 1997, the big one, the Bharat Ratna, which is India's highest civilian award. It was basically the nation's way of acknowledging a lifetime of incredible dedication. So you see this amazing journey from scientist to statesman, and that's what really sealed his legacy. It's like he had two sides. As the missile man, he was the architect of the country's security. But then, as the people's president, a role he stepped into in 2002, he became the architect of hope. He would just tirelessly meet with students, inspiring millions of them to dream big, just like that kid from Rameshwaram once did. And in the end, that's really the message he left us with. He said, "We are all born with the divine fire in us. Our efforts should be to give wings to this fire and fill the world with the glow of its goodness." He truly believed that the same potential that he unlocked in himself, that fire that took him from a tiny island to the highest office in the land, well, he believed it exists in every single one of us. The only question is, what are we going to do to give it wings?